It's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you can save. Just kidding, earning more money is still extremely important, but in today's video, I'll be talking about how I manage my income as a 29-year-old Malaysian. I've been working on this for a while, so in this video, I will share with you guys my monthly expenses by category, and I'll also share with you guys how I budget my money. Let's get to it. For context, I am someone who is self-employed, so my income fluctuates quite a bit. So on one side, I have my content stuff. This is where I get income as well. So the amount that I get and when I get paid, it really depends on the deals that I have and when my clients decide to pay. And on the other hand, I have my trading income. So this is money that I will get for making profits trading. But the structure that I have with my firm right now is that payouts are every 6 months. So I know when I can expect the money, but how much money I'm going to get, again, it really depends on how well I do. So it's still, it still varies from time to time. So I know that most of you guys will not be in a similar scenario to me. Most of you guys will have a stable paycheck every single month, but I will be sharing my principles in terms of how I manage my money, how I manage my cash flow, expenses, all those stuff, and you guys can loosely apply it to yourselves as well. Also, in terms of goals, I'm not the type of person who is extremely frugal. I'm not the type of person who, chases financial independence or early retirement. I know a lot of personal finance content creators, at least. I have seen some on Instagram where they share their savings rate being 60%, 70%. To me, this is just not sustainable. I do want to enjoy my life right now as well. So I prefer to find that balance between saving for the future and enjoying the now. So when you guys go through my expenses, or when I go through my expenses, don't be shocked seeing some numbers being a bit high. This is all relative to my income. So how do I spend my money? First up, whenever I receive any sort of income, the first thing that I will do is set aside some money to pay taxes. So most of you guys, who are salaried, who have a stable paycheck, most of the times I think your companies or your HR should be making those PCBs or those monthly tax deductions for you. But for me, I don't have any of that. I have to manage it on my own. Just because I'm self-employed doesn't mean I don't have to pay tax. I still gotta, pay my dues. So on my current income, I'm saving anywhere between 20 to 22% of every single paycheck that I get. If any of you guys are similar to me, where you're self-employed, or even if you're fully employed, but you have a side gig, you have a freelance job, you're selling stuff on Shopee, whatever it is, make sure you save money for taxes. You don't want to just spend all your money and then next year when you look at your tax bill, you decide or you find out that you can't afford to pay it. So yeah, make sure every time you get money, set aside some for your taxes. Anyway, moving on to my real expenses, and the first one that I will talk about are my commitments. So I wouldn't say that commitments are only my loans, these things that I have to pay the bank, otherwise they'll chase me. I consider commitments as things that, personally at least, whatever it is, I will still have to pay. So expenses that fall under this category are, for example, allowances that I pay my mom every single month, any transportation needs, so my car loan and my petrol, that's the most of it. And then also, my rental and mortgage payments that I have to make every single month. So all of this, when I add them up together, it comes up to about 4,000 ringgit per month or 37% of my total spending. Then there are things that I consider my wants, and this is my biggest spend category. So these things, I wouldn't consider it necessary for me to live. It's more things that I want to enjoy. So one thing to call out is that I did include food spending into this category, even though technically speaking, I do need food to survive, right? It's not really a want. But because I spend quite a bit of money here and I could cut down if I really needed to, I decided to put this into my want category. I haven't tracked how much money I spent on food for quite a while now, but if I were to guess, I think this is pretty accurate actually. I would say anywhere between, on average, 40 ringgit per day. So over 1 month, 30 days, that's about 1,200 ringgit. Then there are things like shopping, sports, and other random things that I do for fun. I did recently started playing golf. That's something that I find kind of fun. And man, it is really expensive. I mean, I decided to buy everything secondhand because I didn't want to buy them brand new. They're just so expensive. But even secondhand, I bought some from Carousel, some from Facebook Marketplace. I've spent about 1,500 ringgit just on the equipment. It is a really expensive sport, but I like it, so I'm willing to spend again. Anyway, the total that I spend on this want category every single month is about 4,500 ringgit. So that's about 42% of my total spend for the month. And then finally, we get to the responsible stuff, which is my spending allocation towards savings and investments. So one good thing is I do have my emergency funds sorted out. so I don't have to contribute any more money towards my emergency funds. So most of this money would go towards investments. So I have an ASB loan that is ongoing right now. I do consider this an investment rather than a commitment, even though it is a loan, because I can terminate it at any time that I want. But aside from this, I also have my auto deposit set up into my brokerage account as well as my robo-advisors. In total, the amount of money that goes out every single month, autopilot, auto-deducted, is about 2,200 ringgit, or 21% of my total spend. So this is right around the mark where I want it to be. By the way, if any of you guys want to invest easily, if you guys want to invest in a platform that allows you to just automatically invest, like me, auto-deducted, you don't have to do anything manually, then check out platforms like Moomoo if you want a brokerage account, or Stashaway if you prefer a robo-advisor. They are really great options for Malaysians. If you guys want to sign up, I'll leave the links in the comments of this video. So these are just my monthly fixed contributions towards my savings and investments. If I were to get, let's say, a higher paycheck for the month, then I would automatically save this money as well. Occasionally, I would buy something nice for myself if it is a big milestone, or I would put it somewhere like, let's say, my holiday fund. So one thing that I do like to do is to build up my cash buffer just to make me feel a bit more secure since my income fluctuates and I am self-employed. I guess you could consider this an emergency fund, but it is a lot bigger than what a normal person should do. Right now, for example, I have enough liquid cash or investments that should last me at least a few good years, even if I were to have zero income. So having said that, let's get a bit more into detail about how I manage my fluctuating income. Honestly speaking, it's a lot harder for someone to do this when their income is not fixed compared to someone who has, a stable paycheck every month. If you know every single month on the 28th, you're going to get 7,000 ringgit from your company, then it's a lot easier for you to budget, it's a lot easier for you to manage your expenses and cash flow. It should be pretty easy actually in comparison. So some people who are self-employed, they like to pay themselves a salary. So, let's say all payments go into your company bank account, and then every month you pay yourself 5,000 ringgit or whatever it is. They want to sort of simulate as if you were a salary employee, and it does make a lot more sense. It does feel a lot more stable, but it's just not my approach when it comes to managing my income. So personally, the way I tackle the risks or the volatility of having a fluctuating income is that I prefer to stack up my cash buffer as much as I can. So I consider this my runway, similar to what startups use. So for those of you guys who don't know, a runway basically means how long can I survive considering my current expenses level and considering how much cash I have available to sort of pay off these expenses every single month. Obviously then, the longer my runway is, the better it is for me. Another thing that I do is that whenever I receive a big payment, let's say I have a big deal where a client pays me a pretty large amount, or whenever I receive my trading payout, something that I like to do is I like to allocate upfront all the commitments that I have to pay. So all those things I was talking about earlier, all my commitments, my mom's allowance, my car loans, ASB financing even, all of these things, whenever I receive a large amount, I would just save up 12 months worth of these expenses and I would put it into a digital bank. I would use their saving jar, their pocket, whatever they call it, and I would just allocate this money separately so I don't use it. And I do this for two main reasons. One is that when I separate this money out from my main expenses account, it reduces the temptation for me to spend money. I think if I leave a large amount of money in my bank account, it really will tempt me to buy things. Not that I look at it and I feel like buying something. It's just that when I see something and it's like 200 ringgit, I'm like, it's okay, I have money to spend it. So at least when I move it out somewhere else, I put it into a savings jar, a pocket, then I won't really see that money out of sight, right? And then another reason that I do this is that it gives me a lot more peace of mind. Aside from my cash buffer that I have, at least I know in the very worst case scenario, I would at least be able to pay off my monthly commitments for the next 12 months. I would say this is quite a conservative approach because at times I do have quite a lot of cash just sitting there and it's earning me only like 2%, 3%, when it could be in the stock market, right? Earning me 6, 7%. But to me, it is worth the peace of mind. So every time these pockets or these jars start to deplete, whenever I receive my next big paycheck, I'll just top them back up to 12 months worth of expenses. So I think doing all of these things, increasing my cash buffer, setting aside my commitments, all of this stuff, it helps me organize and manage my fluctuating income. It makes sure that I can survive for quite a long time even if I have zero income, and it makes sure that I can still pay my necessary bills even if things were to be, let's say a worst case scenario. It helps me not require, having a stable income or paying myself a fixed salary every single month. And then of course, whenever I receive a big paycheck, I also make sure that I invest a good chunk of that paycheck. So instead of having a fixed amount on top of my monthly 2,200 ringgit in deposits that I make to the various investments, I will also allocate 20% of any big paycheck to my investments. So again, it will go to ASB sometimes it will go to my brokerage accounts. It really depends, but I like to stick to that 20%. So if things are going really good, then I would invest a bigger amount. If things are not going so good, then it will be a smaller amount, but at least the percentage is consistent. So by now, you guys should be able to understand my priorities when it comes to spending. The first thing that I will have to prioritize is obviously taxes. As you guys know, there are only two things that are certain in life, that is death and taxes. So yeah, I always prioritize this. And again, I set it aside into a digital bank, into one of the savings jars, and make sure that it's just set aside, earning me some interest before I have to file my taxes the following year. Then my next priority is savings and investments. You guys saw earlier that a lot of these are already automated, so that's all good. And then after this comes my commitments. And again, you guys saw how I've managed that. And then finally, once all of those things are sorted, the rest of my cash, I just spend it however I want. It's really just completely up to me. I don't have any budget or any method. This includes food, shopping, all of those other things. It's, I spend it how I like. Funny story though, around 2 months ago, I was running low on my spending account, which is, my bank account where I used to pay for my day-to-day expenses, because I had a few deals that were ongoing and I had to pay my editor and stuff because the deals were completed, but the clients were making payments a bit late. So I was running low on cash. The thing is, I had a separate savings that I could draw from if I wanted to, but for some reason, I just really didn't want to touch my savings. I really wanted to try and survive on whatever I had until my payments came in. So, I just cut down on my expenses. I started eating cheaper food, I stopped my shopping completely, and funnily enough, it actually worked. So maybe it is a good idea for me to have less money in this account so that I would just spend less overall. But yeah, that is basically how I manage my money. Budgeting style wise, you guys can see that I'm very flexible with the way I manage my money. This is essentially what the reverse budgeting method is. There is no allocation towards food, there's no allocation towards rent and all that. I basically save my money first, and then the rest of it, I spend it how I like. Honestly, you guys on a salary, you guys can follow this method too. So let's say your salary is 10,000 ringgit per month, right? You want to save 20% of it. Every month you get 10,000 ringgit, you save 2,000 ringgit, you're left with 8,000, you can just spend it however you want. This is a legit method that I would say quite a lot of people use. I would say that this method works for people who are disciplined with money, so who are, they can just work around the remaining 80% and they just don't touch that 20% at all, no matter what happens. This will work for you if you are that type of person. But if you're someone who is, let's say, less disciplined, if you overspend and then you just take away from your savings to pay off your expenses, then maybe you should stick to something more rigid, something like the 50-30-20 rule. I just find that for me, those kinds of budgeting methods, they don't really work because I'm not that detail oriented. I don't want to go like line by line and stuff like that. Sometimes using this method, I do feel like I'm overspending, especially when I pay for a very expensive meal or I buy new clothes that cost me a lot of money. I do feel like maybe I'm overspending, but I think back that, hey, I got all of my savings and investments sorted, so as long as I can just survive with this rest of the money for the rest of the month, then I'm fine. Finally, let me just touch on a bit about the payment methods that I use for all of my expenses. I think this is interesting and can be beneficial for you guys too. So I pretty much use credit cards basically all of the time. I think 80% of my expenses are on credit cards. And I want to do this because I want to make sure that my credit score is still good. And I always make my payments on time, so it should still be good. That's why I want to use credit. And another reason is I've made a lot of videos about this, but credit card cashbacks and benefits, they're just extremely good. And even if a store only accepts e-wallets, right? Let's say, those scan, do it now, QR stuff, a lot of merchants these days, they do have e-wallet codes, but they might not accept credit cards. I will still top up or pay off my e-wallet using a credit card. And for that reason, I do use buy now, pay later. Honestly, it's extremely good because technically then with buy now, pay later, I can pay off everything using a credit card. And as long as you guys can pay off everything on time, as long as, again, you can control your spending and be disciplined with money, this is a really good idea. Because at my current spending level, I'm pretty sure my cashback that I get every single month just from credit cards is about 120 to 150 ringgit. That's just for 1 month. So that is how I manage my money on an overall basis. It can seem a bit chaotic, and honestly, it is. Just find a strategy or a system that works for you to make sure that you don't overspend and you're still saving and investing money, regardless of whether your income is fixed or fluctuating like mine. Let me know in the comments of this video, what is your preferred budgeting method and how do you guys manage your income? Thanks for watching this video to the end, guys. Give me a huge thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.